Hello friends, I welcome you all to my YouTube channel SS Hub for Fundas and Concepts. Our today's topic is reproduction in plants. To produce its kind is a characteristic of all living organisms. You have already learned this in class 6. The production of new individuals from their parents is known as reproduction. But how do plants reproduce? There are different modes of reproduction in plants which we shall learn in this chapter. Modes of reproduction. In class 6, you learned about different parts of a flowering plant. Most plants have roots, stems and leaves. These are called the vegetative parts of a plant. After a certain period of growth, most plants bear flowers. You may have seen the mango trees flowering in the spring. It is these flowers that give rise to juicy mango fruit we enjoy in summer. We eat the fruits and usually discard the seeds. Seeds germinate and form new plants. So what is the function of flowers in plants? The flowers perform the function of reproduction in plants. Flowers are the reproductive parts of a plant. A flower may have either the male part or the female part or both male and female parts. There are several ways by which plants produce their offspring. These are categorized into two types, asexual and sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, plants can give rise to new plant without seeds, whereas in sexual reproduction, new plants are obtained from seeds. Asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, new plants are obtained without production of seeds or spores. Vegetative propagation. It is a type of asexual reproduction in which new plants are produced from roots, stems, leaves and buds. Since reproduction is through the vegetative parts of a plant, it is known as vegetative propagation. Plants produced by vegetative propagation take less time to grow and bear flowers and fruits earlier than those produced from seeds. The new plants are exact copies of the parent plant as they are produced from a single parent. Later in this chapter, you will learn that plants produced by sexual reproduction have characters of both the parents. Plants produce seeds as a result of sexual reproduction. Budding. You have already learned about the tiny organisms like yeast can be seen only under a microscope. These grow and multiply every few hours if sufficient nutrients are made available to them. Fragmentation. You might have seen slimy green patches in ponds or in other stagnant water bodies. These are the algae. When water and nutrients are available, algae grow and multiply rapidly by fragmentation. An alga breaks up into two or more fragments. These fragments or pieces grow into new individuals. This process continues and they cover a large area in a short period of time. Spore formation. In chapter 1, you learned that the fungi on a bread piece grows from spores which are present in the air. The spores are asexual reproductive bodies. Each spore is covered by a hard protective coat to withstand unfavorable conditions such as high temperature and low humidity. So, they survive for a long time. Under favorable conditions, a spore germinates and develops into a new individual. Plants such as moss and ferns also reproduce by means of spores. Sexual reproduction. You have learned earlier the structure of a flower. You know that the flowers are reproductive parts of a plant. The stamens are the male reproductive part and the pistil is the female reproductive part. Pollination. Generally, pollen grains have a tough protective coat which prevents them from drying up. Since Pollen grains are light, they can be carried by wind or water. Insects visit flowers and carry away pollen on their bodies. Some of the pollen lands on the stigma of a flower of the same kind. The transfer of pollen from the anther to the stigma of a flower is called pollination. If the pollen lands on the stigma of the same flower, it is called self-pollination. When the pollen of a flower lands on the stigma of another flower of the same plant or that of a different plant of the same kind, it is called cross-pollination. Fertilization. The cell which results after fusion of the gametes is called a zygote. The process of fusion of male and female gametes to form a zygote is called fertilization. The zygote develops into an embryo. Fruits and seeds formation. After fertilization, the ovary grows into a fruit and other parts of the flower fall off. The fruit is the ripened ovary. The seeds develop from the ovules. The seed contains an embryo enclosed in a protective seed coat. Some fruits are fleshy and juicy, such as mango, apple, and orange. Some fruits are hard like almonds and walnuts. Seed dispersal. In nature, some same kind of plants grow at different places. This happens because seeds are dispersed to different places. Sometimes, after a walk through a forest or a field or a park, you may have found seeds or fruits sticking to your clothes. Did you try to observe how these seeds were clinging to your clothes? What do you think will happen if all seeds of a plant were to fall at the same place and grow there? There would be severe competition for sunlight, water, minerals, and space. As a result, the seeds would not grow into healthy plants. Plants benefit by seed dispersal. It prevents competition between the plant and its own seedings for sunlight, water, and minerals. It also enables the plants to invade new habitats for wider distribution. Seeds and fruits of plants are carried away by wind, water, and animals. Winged seeds such as those of drumstick and maple, and light seeds of grasses or hairy seeds of oak, and hairy fruit of sunflower get blown off with the wind to faraway places. Some seeds are dispersed by water. These fruits or seeds usually develop floating ability in the form of spongy or fibrous outer coat, as in coconut. Some seeds are dispersed by animals, especially spiny seeds with hooks which get attached to the bodies of animals are carried to distant places. Examples are xanthium and urina. Some seeds are dispersed when the fruits burst with sudden jerks. These seeds are scattered far from the parent plant. This happens in case of castor and balsam. Let us summarize what we have learned. All organisms multiply or reproduce their own kind. In plants, there are two modes of reproduction, asexual and sexual. There are several methods of asexual reproduction such as fragmentation, budding, spore formation, and vegetative propagation. Sexual reproduction involves the fusion of male and female gametes. In vegetative propagation, new plants are produced from different vegetative parts such as leaves, stems, and roots. Flower is the reproductive part of a plant. A flower may be unisexual with either the male or the female reproductive parts. A bisexual flower has both the male and female reproductive parts. The male gametes are found inside the pollen grains and female gametes are found in the ovule. Pollination is the process of transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the same to or another flower. Pollination is of two types, self-pollination and cross-pollination. In self-pollination, pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. In cross-pollination, pollen grains are transferred from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same kind. Pollination takes takes place in the plants with the help of wind, water, and insects. The fusion of male and female gametes is called fertilization. Fertilized egg is called zygote. Zygote develops into an embryo. Fruit is a mature ovary, whereas the ovule develops into a seed which contains the developing embryo. Seed dispersal is aided by wind, water, and animals. Seed dispersal helps the plants to prevent overcrowding, avoid competition for sunlight, water, and minerals, and invade new habitats. I thank you all for your listening. Please stay tuned for this channel for more updates. Cheers. Hello friends.